Did you know that beneath every forest lies a vast communication network that processes over 100 gigabytes of data per second? That's more bandwidth than most of our internet connections, and it's been operating for millions of years through fungal networks.
Like, that's fascinating. You're talking about the mycorrhizal networks, right? The ones scientists have nicknamed nature's internet?
Exactly. And what's mind blowing is that these fungal networks connect hundreds of trees in a single forest, sharing not just information but actual resources. Recent studies show that a single mother tree can support more than 40 younger trees through these underground connections.
You know what really gets me? The fact that these networks can distinguish between related and unrelated trees, kind of like a natural family recognition system.
Well, that's actually leading me to think about something even deeper: how these natural networks mirror our own consciousness. Just as trees have this invisible web of connections, our minds have these incredible pathways between conscious and unconscious processing.
Hmm. So you're suggesting there's a parallel between forest communication and human intuition?
Precisely. Research shows our brains process about 11 million bits of information per second, but we're only consciously aware of about 40 bits. The rest is handled by these amazing neural networks we're just beginning to understand.
That's exactly like how the forest network operates beneath the surface, isn't it?
Right? And here's what's really fascinating. Studies have shown that trees can detect and respond to threats within fractions of a second through these networks, just like how our intuition can alert us to danger before we consciously process it.
So these systems have evolved over millions of years to be incredibly efficient.
And incredibly sophisticated, scientists have discovered that older trees, which they call hub trees, can actually recognize and nurture their own seedlings, sharing up to 40% more resources with their own offspring than with unrelated trees.
Well, that makes me wonder, how can we better tap into our own natural networks?
Research in neuroscience suggests that when we try to consciously override our intuitive responses, we actually make worse decisions about 80% of the time. It's like we're fighting against this incredibly sophisticated system that's evolved to help us.
That's really making me think differently about both forests and consciousness.
And here's something else to consider: these fungal networks can extend for miles underground, connecting entire ecosystems. Similarly, our unconscious mind can draw on experiences and knowledge we don't even remember acquiring.
So in both cases, there's this vast, hidden infrastructure supporting everything we can see on the surface?
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that both systems become more resilient through these connections. Studies show that trees connected to the mycorrhizal network have a 50% higher survival rate during times of stress.
It's remarkable nature really has figured out the power of connection, hasn't it?
Well, consider this. These fungal networks have been evolving for over 470 million years, while our own neural networks have been developing for just a fraction of that time. Maybe we should be taking more cues from these ancient systems.
That's really changing how I think about both nature and human potential.
And here's what I find most exciting: we're only just beginning to understand these systems. Scientists estimate we've identified less than 5% of fungal species in the world, and we're still discovering new ways our brains process information.
So what do you think this means for our future understanding of consciousness?
Well, I think it suggests that we need to start trusting these natural networks more. Just as trees don't question whether to share resources through their fungal connections, maybe we need to have more faith in our intuitive processes.
That's really profound. It's like we're all part of these vast networks of connection and communication.
Earth's most dangerous military zones has become an accidental paradise for vampire fang deer. The DMZ between North and South Korea holds an extraordinary secret about wildlife conservation that's turning everything we know about environmental protection on its head.
You know what's fascinating about that? This 160-mile stretch has become one of the most pristine wildlife sanctuaries in East Asia, completely by accident.
Let me tell you about these remarkable musk deer. They're like nothing you'd expect. Instead of antlers, they have these long fangs protruding from their upper jaws, making them look more like something from a fantasy novel than your typical deer.
Hmm. That's such an interesting adaptation. How did these unusual creatures end up in a military buffer zone?
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. The eastern mountain region of the DMZ, where it meets the Baekdu mountain range, contains what scientists call primeval forest, basically. It's some of the oldest untouched woodland in all of Asia. These musk deer, which are critically endangered, have found refuge in this accidental sanctuary.
That's exactly what makes this story so compelling. Nature reclaiming what humans abandoned.
And you know what's really mind-blowing? Studies show that since the DMZ's establishment in 1953, over 6,000 species of plants and animals have been documented there. Let's pause and think about that for a moment. How many species would you expect to find in a former war zone?
Well, that number is absolutely staggering when you consider the context.
Right? And here's another fascinating aspect. These musk deer are so sensitive to human presence that their survival here tells us something crucial about ecosystem recovery. When we give nature enough space and time, it can bounce back in ways we never expected.
So, what do you think this teaches us about traditional conservation methods?
That's such a crucial question. Traditional conservation often involves active management, but the DMZ shows us that sometimes the best strategy is simply stepping back. It's like nature's version of the do not disturb sign.
The way you put that really brings home the point about human intervention, sometimes being the problem rather than the solution.
Exactly. And here's something to think about. What are three key lessons we can learn from the DMZ's accidental conservation success? Take a moment to consider it.
That's a great way to frame this discussion. Let me add that similar patterns have emerged in other restricted zones around the world.
Oh, absolutely, like Chernobyl's exclusion zone, where wildlife populations have exploded since humans left. But here's what makes the DMZ unique. It's not just about quantity, it's about quality. These musk deer represent one of the rarest species on Earth, finding sanctuary in what was essentially a war zone.
The irony of that situation is pretty remarkable when you think about it.
Well, as we wrap up, I think there's something profound here about hope and resilience. These vampire fang deer, surviving and thriving in the most unlikely of places, show us that positive outcomes can emerge from even the most difficult circumstances.
That's such a powerful way to look at it. Nature's ability to heal itself when given the chance.